Hi, I'm Ruth McPhail and I'm a professor at the Griffith Business School and Head of Department of Employment Relations and Human Resources. I started in the Scholarship of Learning and Teaching really by a happy accident. I didn't actually realise there wasn't such a thing, to be fair. I've always been really curious about adult education and incredibly intrigued about the success of students in higher education. So for me, it was just a natural curiosity and an extension of the research I already did within my role as an academic. So really from when I began my career, I started the process of investigating better ways to assist students in transitioning to university and how we could support students to ensure that they reach success by graduation and beyond. So the scholarship activities I've been involved with really range across the spectrum, and that really begins with starting off by thinking of the big picture. So whenever I'm doing an innovation or something in the classroom, I'm always thinking big picture. So what are the outcomes that we're trying to achieve, and what's some of the scholarship that we might be able to align with the project while we're doing it? So generally my scholarship starts with an innovation. I think of an idea, and then big picture, I think what are the outcomes, how are we going to measure them, and what might be some of the scholarship we could get from the innovation. So I tend to start with ethics, and that's a good way to kind of scope projects and innovations and think about how we might cut the information that we're going to receive, and also what sort of information do we want to collect as we go along the way. So it's quite an involved process, but it's a step-by-step one. So I start with ethics, then often I will look around for money. So grants and grant applications are something that I quite like to do when they're available, and something that you can look for in all sorts of areas, both within the university, within the business school, but also more broadly. There are national grants as well. And if I can get some funds, great, so I secure grant money. Then I tend to do things like share the information through seminars or communities of practice as the innovation is developing. Then I tend to go towards more traditional publishing. So I'll collect the data, obviously through the ethics procedure. I've done a literature review as well, and then write up the results and publish that work. So that's the methodology that I've tended to follow throughout my career, and that really is about thinking with the end in mind. What are the outcomes? What's the best way to get that information? What are some of the best ways that we can evaluate that information? And then what might be the sources or the places that we want to send that information to in the end? So thinking of the end user. So is it something that we're sourcing and developing for a community of practice event, or is it more along a publication? So different types of outcomes are going to require different kinds of input. So really putting the pieces of the puzzle together before you start to ensure that you're not wasting any of your valuable time, energy and innovation, to make sure that it's also disseminated as widely and has the best impact that it possibly can. So my big tips are to begin with the end in mind. So look big picture. So those two things, think big picture, but also think about what's the outcome that you're trying to achieve. So by big picture, I mean thinking about what are the various ways that you might be able to use the data that you're going to be collecting from your innovations to share with others. So it could be that you want to do a TCOP presentation or a seminar event, or that you want to get a publication, or that you want to do a conference paper, or preferably that you do all of those things. So I try to roll all of those aspects, including the grant application, into whatever innovation I do. So it's important to start right at the beginning thinking about what's the big picture, where am I going to go, what's the correct methodology, and really for me the most simplistic way to do that is via the ethics application process, because it actually makes you stop and think about who is your audience, what are you trying to achieve, what sort of data you're going to need, what's the best methodology, and how you might disseminate that information widely for impact as a result after you've concluded that innovation.